I think it might be time for something a little bit more on the wholesome side. Let's go see what we can do. You know, a lot of people ask me, Nicholas, how is it that you make such good bread? Not this bread. Now, people don't really ask me that, but the key to good bread is good ingredients, really, and a bit of patience. Now, you really don't need anything fancy. This is home brand flour and it will work fine, but you do want a certain minimum quantity of protein, and that is the gluten that makes bread bread. Bread is mostly starch and gluten, and you can't have one without the other, trust me. Now, gluten is a complicated substance, and it's sort of tucked away in the particles of starch within the grain. And the way that the flour is ground and where it comes from and how much rain it got when the wheat was growing all makes a big difference. And you know, I've bought the same brand of flour several times and it's been completely different. But let's have a go with one of these. This one's got 11.9 grams of protein, and this one has 10.9. So let's go with this guy. It's got a bit more protein, should take a little bit more water to get it hydrated, but it should produce a more bready bread. A bit of lighting first, though. This place is dark and dingy. You are definitely going to need one of these. A set of digital scales, or you can go old school. You're going to need a freshly washed bowl. It needs to be nice and clean. We are about to ferment things in there. We don't want any stray bacteria. We just want yeast. And this stuff is pretty good. You don't need to proof it, you just mix it with the plain flour. A bit of salt, and more of it than you think, which is why the scales are important. You don't want to get the amount of salt wrong. In fact, I invested in one of these from eBay. They're incredibly cheap. You just have to wait for it to arrive from China. This is a tiny little digital scale that's a lot more accurate than your average piece of equipment from IKEA. Just to get it right the same every time. You don't need that. You can get away with this. What's the recipe for bread? Well, here's how you work it out. It really depends on how much bread you want to make. Often people are coming over and I want to make a bit more, or sometimes it's better to make a bit less because then it seems to rise a bit better in the oven. So let's say, because I've got people coming over, we're going to use 500 grams of flour. So we go 500 grams multiplied by 0.65 equals 325 grams of water. 500 grams multiplied by 0.02 for 2% salt. And that's it. That's the recipe, and it all depends how much flour you want to use. The water is not exact. The salt can go up to 0.03 if you've got more time for the bread to rise. Bread generally tastes better with more salt in it, but it makes it harder for the yeasties to grow. But you can't have no salt, they do need salt. So I'm guessing that because we've got a relatively high protein flour at about 11 grams per 100 grams, we're going to need a bit more water than that. We have to just mix it up and see how we go. 500 grams. Life is too short to sift the flour. We're going to be kneading it pretty vigorously anyway. Alright, 511 grams, that's pretty close, so we know we're going to need more water than what we measured out anyway. Now the water that you use is as important as the flour. It's important that it's at room temperature or colder. This has a big effect on how quickly the yeast goes. You can deliberately make the water warmer to speed up the rise, but that'll make your bread taste bad. It's an unmistakable yeasty, sort of fungusy taste that's really hard to describe. The less chlorine, the better. if you can avoid using highly chlorinated tap water. It made a big difference when I moved to a new place and there was noticeably less chlorine in the water. Yeah, that's probably about right, given how much extra we said we'd need. Get it all to one side and tip it in. So, salt, you can just use the yeast packet and we'll tear that. And we need 10 grams. Already looks like a lot of salt, doesn't it? You really need a lot of salt for bread. 10 grams. It's not really just a pinch. In she goes. Nice clean tea towel. What I prefer to do is just give this a bit of a preliminary mix so that we don't have all the salt concentrated straight on top of the yeast. That way the yeast won't get a salty shock when they wake up from their cryogenic sleep. That'll do. We'll get a good sturdy wooden spoon. You don't want something flimsy like that. You want the thick one. So we combine our room temperature clean water with the rest of the ingredients. And just fold it all in as quickly as you can. It looks really dry at the moment. I can see that there is enough water to have collected all the powder from the bottom of the bowl. Alright, I can see now that it's really dry, so let's get some more water. And don't add it all at once. Just the tiniest little dribble. That's gonna make a huge difference. Just be patient. So it's pulling all the dough off the side, but we really want it just wet enough to be sticking to the sides. So we'll go again. Alright, so it's still probably a little bit dry, but I'm seeing what I want here. It's sticking to the edges, and as I pull it upwards, it sort of splits into a strandy, sort of glutinous mass of stretchy bits. Now, how much flour are we going to put down on the board? None whatsoever. We have the recipe perfect, and this is where I believe most people go wrong, is to add more water or more flour after this. So one of these really helps. Such a basic thing, but it makes such a big difference because you don't need the flour on the board to get it off. And let's get one of our hands sticky here. Oh yeah. Oh, that's gonna be some nice bread. I can feel it in my fingers. But there's nothing special about it. There's really nothing that you have to do or shouldn't do. If your arm hurts, you're doing it right. It's just a case of putting physical effort into it to get the gluten to be sticky and ready. And that's all it is. Any way that you do that, maybe you use a machine to do it, that's fine. There's nothing different either way. It all works. It just needs a good solid kneading. And you'll be able to feel a difference after a while. Well, I think that'll do. So let's wash this off, because there's a technique to everything, I think. And there's something to learn here, and that is that you want to use a brush. A brush is the tool of choice for getting dough off of things. Nothing works as well as a brush. Just take a bit of olive oil or something, and this is kind of an ingredient, I guess, because it'll eventually get mixed into the bread, so make sure you use some reasonably nice stuff. A little bit of oil on your hands helps the dough to not stick to you while you pick it up. Looking glorious and silky. And it's a pretty cold night tonight. It's gonna take a good 2 hours to rise. The cling wrap is important to stop the outside of the dough from drying out and becoming crusty before it starts cooking. The crusty bits on the outside will then get kneaded onto the inside. And you know, I think we'll do a time lapse. I've never done this before. This should be cool. And it's risen. Enough. That'll do. If you clean the bowl nicely at the beginning, hopefully, if you're lucky, you won't have to disturb it too much to peel it away from the side. You really don't want to bunch it all up into a random ball at this point. There we go. So it's very soft and airy. And what I do is just fold the edges under and just keep folding them underneath, tucking them under until it's a nice poofy ball. I'll just set it down there. Turn it up past hot into hot as buggery is to fetch out the old cast iron pot. In we go. There it is at a screaming hot 250 degrees. Let's get the lid off. Don't forget and touch the lid with your hand later. And then we're going to lift this in. Hopefully it doesn't stick. Good, good. I'm going to take a clean pair of scissors and cut nice and deep down into it. Put the lid back on. Just boiled the kettle. We'll pour some boiling water on the lid. And then straight back into the hot oven without burning yourself. And that's it. You leave it alone for 30 minutes and then check on it. You can't see it while it's in the big black pot, but the magic is happening. I can smell that. And it's been half an hour now that the bread's been in here. Normally a good idea to take the lid off at the end so that the crust can go crispy in the drier air. There we go. Perfectly cooked. We're just going by colour here. Looks pretty amazing. And if everything's gone to plan, you should get a nice hollow sound on the bottom there. Now I'm just going to sit this on the empty oven rack with the oven door open and leave it there till morning. It's good to leave it in the hot place to cool down because it'll keep the crust nice and dry as the oven cools off, just wafting sort of warm, dry air past it. And that's it. That's how you make bread. We'll slice it open tomorrow. True what they say, it just lets all the moisture out and it goes stale a lot quicker. It's the next morning. Let's give it a slice. It's cooled down. It's a bit less crusty than it was. It's still pretty crispy. But the crust will be a bit more chewy than it was last night when it was really, really fresh. I find a sharp knife is the way to go with just lots of side to side movement. And there you have it. That's pretty good stuff. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something. Maybe you'll give it a go. It's maybe not as difficult as I made it look. if you prepare the ingredients and you figure out your ratio of water that you need for the particular flour that you've got. Alright, see you next time.